let's have a look then at this area of illusions and delusions. Now, an illusion, if you look at this little picture here, an illusion is a distortion of perception. But what's interesting is it's a distortion that we are all, most of us anyway, subject to. So, for example, if we're looking at a road on a very hot day, we're going to see some shimmering off of that road as if it's kind of a mirage. It looks like a mirror of some kind. Now, we know that that is because the road is hot and it's a common distortion. So nobody's mind will be too disturbed if we have a collective illusion. So an illusion is something that we would all see, but a delusion is something that maybe only you might see. And this is where sometimes people seek my advice because they say, well, I don't know, Carole, this thing happened. Am I losing my mind because I was the only one that saw it, apparently? Is it a delusion? Well, it may or may not be a delusion. If it's a delusion that's linked to some psychopathology, then if it's causing concern, then we have to look at and do something about that. But if it's something that only you saw, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a delusion, even if your mind can't quite work it out. So when we think about optical illusions, what's really interesting is something like dyslexia, for example, lives in the eye and not the brain. And that can be a huge relief to people. Optical means of the eye, so how we perceive, how we see, and I'm going to take you through in this lecture the different sensory systems in which we take in information and knowledge. But something like a dyslexia, it's because in the eyeball you have something called rods and cones, and they are little cellular structures that are decoding your visual world. There are other things that are going on, but essentially information is coming in and through the rods and the cones. Then what you'll find in psychology is there's crossing over through the brain all the time. And so in something like a dyslexia, it's because one part of the brain that needs to find the words to use, and then the next part of the brain that needs to put those words into a sentence crosses over. So when you're having something like dyslexia, why I say dyslexia lives in the eye and not the brain, and I was really fortunate to be taught colour spectrum and optical perception by the professor that developed the blue glasses. And why blue glasses work for people that have dyslexia is because on a white page with black writing, it's too, how would I say this, it's too stark for the eye for some people to decode that incoming information, the very white against the very black. So when we put an overlay of colour, and we use blue, tends to be very successful, and then for some people like an amber colour is very successful, or you might have rose coloured glasses, not literally rose coloured glasses. So it's not that you would need glasses as in a coloured as in a lens because you need to increase or decrease the incoming information. You need to just soften the starkness between the two very opposite tones, and in softening that with blue glasses or a blue overlay of work, that what you find is the information goes to the brain more gently, more softly, and as a result people can read, the words stop jumping about the page because the brain isn't sort of kind of on alert. It can calm down, and as a result that people can find that they can read. So it's a relief to some people to know that dyslexia lives in the eye, because otherwise they think that they have massive brain problems, like they have this separateness in the brain, and it does cause real big problems, especially with learning, because if people don't realise this phenomena, they don't realise that they might be a bit dyslexic, then they might, and really sadly and unfortunately, I do feel a lot of sympathy for people if they think that they're not very bright and they can't learn, when it's just something simple, like they have a real sensitiveness in the actual eyeball. And you see what comes in through our eyes goes into our brain, and then our brain decodes it for us. And then, do you remember what I said? then it dictates our behaviour after that. So it's a good idea to understand our mind. Sometimes when I've done a lot of work, I'm an author, when I was doing one of my degrees, I don't have dyslexia. I wouldn't ever say that I do. I definitely don't. But I noticed that my eyes and my brain were getting tired due to the hard focused work that I was reading. And so I just bought myself some blue glasses and they worked. My brain seemed to be able to sort of like cool down a bit so that I could read.